It's Dean and Sheena. We're now on air with Joe Smith. Hi, Joe. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Here's a question, though. Have you ever been to the UK before?
I have never been to the UK, and that's just not right because my younger sister has been. The older sister is always supposed to experience things first, so I've got to right that wrong.
Of course, you're coming very soon for Nashville Meets. Aside from that being a wonderful event, is there anything else about being in the UK that you're particularly excited about?
Well, I'm kind of a nerd, and I love history, and the only other time that I've been to Europe, I was in France, and, America's a really young country. And the history just goes back so much farther across the pond. So I'm looking forward to just seeing some really, really old buildings and reading some historic markers and just kind of doing the tourist history thing. And I think it's going to be a blast.
Let's just talk about your music then, because I think you have quite a distinct sound, almost a unique sound. There are so many sub-genres of country. You've got the pop side and the rock side, but you've got a modern classic-sounding side. I've heard somebody refer to it as Motown country before. How would you define it for somebody who is yet to hear your music?
Well, I think that Motown puts them on the right track, but we like to joke, and I actually just named my touring company Joetown because it's definitely not purely Motown because it mixes in just anything that's authentic to me as far as music is concerned, and lyrically, it's very much a country lyric in the way that it's written and in the things that it says and in all the songs. And there's just a little bit of soul. There's, of course, a little bit of country mixed in. And so, therefore, it's just kind of my own creation. So we call it Joetown.
I like that. And at what age did you realize that you were going to become a musician and start learning to play and sing and everything?
Well, it's funny that you asked that because I can't remember because it happened so early on. And somehow in my juvenile brain, I was convinced at a very early age that I was already a professional singer. And this was just some made-up world that I lived in. And I remember that my mom put me in this pageant, which is something that's very typical to Southern American culture. It was like a beauty pageant. And she put me in this pageant, and I spoke to the judges. And when they asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, this was when I was 5 years old. I just told them, I said, well, I'm already a professional country music singer. I just don't get up on stage a lot. And the funny thing about it is, they laughed, and I really didn't know what they thought was so funny because it was very true for me. But the funny thing about it was that was the beginning of me actually getting to get up on stage because one of the judges kind of soft placed in his heart for me, and he put me up on stage and let me sing a country song that night. And people saw it and started inviting me to local gigs, and it became sort of a novelty. And so it actually, I manifested my own destiny.
I like that. It's a good story. So who were some of your earliest influences pushing you down the musical route?
Yeah, well, I always like to say that my dad's record collection was it because there's so many different things in it, it's hard to pinpoint just one. But he was really a connoisseur of great music, and he loved anything from jazz to, that Scottish funk band called Average White Band, to Chicago, to Motown, to James Taylor and Carole King, and then Keith Whitley and George Strait. So all of that kind of combined, and I would just sit in the floor with his records and just put one on after the other, all genres. And so it's really hard to pinpoint. But in country, I would have to say the Judds and K.T. Oslin and Keith Whitley were my biggest influences.
But that's quite a diverse influence there, and that's always healthy for music, isn't it? To have lots of different areas inspiring you, and then to come up with your own unique sound, which I think you've done.
I think so. I think that, disparate influence you can kind of add to the pot, the more unique you become as well. So I hope that that's true for me.
You've been listed as a Rolling Stone country artist to watch. Well, I can understand that with Old School Groove. I love that. In fact, I love the whole EP of Introducing Joe Smith. It's got a great sound, and Old School Groove it's quite upbeat. What's the story behind the song?
Yeah, so I had just started to really be able to define specifically what I wanted to do with my co-writers, and I was scheduled to write with Ben Burgess and Bobby Huff, who are two of my favorites. And they had the idea, Old School Groove, and it was one of those days where I was able to just kind of be a diva. And I walked into the room and they had somewhat of the musical feel and that title, and that was just right up my alley, and I knew how to jump in with them and just, charge right ahead, and it fell out really easily. So there's not a ton of a story. It was just a really easy, natural song to write, and a lot of times those are the best ones because they're just meant to be.
And sometimes you can spend weeks and weeks trying to come up with ideas. Sheena knows this. She's an aspiring songwriter. And you can spend ages trying to come up with deep ideas, but sometimes you'll sit down in a day or so and things will just flow naturally. And it's great.
Yeah, and it's kind of maddening when, because it's like when it happens, you're like, uh-oh, how did that happen? How do I do that? Where did that come from? And you toil away, and then the times it doesn't happen, you're like, oh, I'm terrible.
Okay, so I imagine you've played in quite a lot of different venues and cities, but what would you say would be your favorite?
My goodness, my favorite, this is so cliche, but if you've ever played the Opry, it's a really, really special feeling. I love being on stage at the Opry, the new Opry at the Opry House, and of course the Ryman. They're just both such special rooms, and they're spiritual places. It's almost like all the good memories that have been made in those walls have stuck in the walls, and you walk in and it just envelops you, and it's such a great energy to perform inside of, and I love those places. But you never know. I could replace those with somewhere in the UK. We don't know.
Very true. Leading on from that, have you ever had any embarrassing onstage moments?
Oh, goodness. Nothing just jumps to mind, but I will tell you what I'm very afraid of. Sometimes, my granddaddy, I inherited this from him. I can get, it happens so rarely, but if I get the hiccups, they will last for a couple days. They'll come and go steady for a couple days, and I've had that happen, and I've been like, what if I had a gig right now? Because nothing gets rid of them. You can't scare me away from it. I mean, nothing. And I'm like, what if this happens on stage? This could be terrible.
Yeah, you're going to be absolutely fine when you're here in the UK. Don't have those sorts of things here, so we're all good. Now, if a movie were ever to be made about your life, let's say Hollywood came to you down the line and said, we're making Joe Smith the movie, who would you want to play you in that film?
Oh, goodness. Well, my favorite actresses look nothing like me. I would say to be the most convincing, it would probably be Reese Witherspoon, because she's Southern and blonde, and some people say I'm a little sassy. So she would probably be the most convincing, but my favorite actress is Marianne, and I'm not sure how you say her last name. Cotillard, I think is how you would say it in English, phonetically speaking. But she's French, and I love her, and I love her movies. So, I kind of want to be her, so that would be great.
And if you were to be a Disney character for a day, who would you want to be?
Oh, I think some days I am Belle off Beauty and the Beast, because I'm a little bit of a nerd, and I'm pretty much happy to just be in the library or have my nose in a book all the time.
One thing we always ask artists, because we're very jealous of the energy you guys have on stage, I mean, I'd love some of that, that is, what do you eat for breakfast? What starts your day?
Well, I have some go-tos. I like Ezekiel bread, and I love some peanut butter or almond butter on one of those cinnamon raisin Ezekiel English muffins. That's really good. If I'm trying to be good, I eat some egg whites with cheese. I have a go-to smoothie that I like. I keep it pretty healthy for breakfast. If I'm splurging, I like the hollandaise sauce. Oh, like Eggs Benedict with a seafood. That's my splurge.
Oh, that sounds amazing. I like it. Now, I am afraid that because you are coming to Britain very, very soon, I'm going to have to put to you a quiz of British things. 3 questions for you. Hopefully, they're not too difficult. So, our first question, it's just multiple choice with 2 answers. Who is our current Prime Minister? Is it David Cameron or Theresa May?
Theresa May.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
Ooh, I like it.
Question number 2 then. Which is further north? Is it Manchester or Birmingham?
Birmingham.
No, I'm afraid that's Manchester. And our third question. What is the American term for what we call candy floss?
Is it edible?
Yeah.
Twizzlers.
No, it is, in fact, what you guys would refer to as cotton candy. Now, that question comes up.
Cotton candy.
Yeah, no, that question comes up because one of our friends from Texas was visiting and we mentioned what we call candy floss here. And she's like, what's that?
Oh, my goodness. That is a hoot. Well, I loved this quiz. I'm just embarrassed I don't know my English geography, but I'm going to get better when I get over there. I'm going to know it all.
Definitely. Well, we're going to have to play that with more artists. That was fun. Okay, well, it's been good to talk to you. And you are going to be playing Nashville Meets on Saturday from 6:45 to 8 p.m. at Canada Square Park in Canary Wharf. Have an amazing time. I know the audience there are absolutely going to love you because British country fans are passionate. And I tell you, the crowds are something else. They're really good.
Oh, I'm looking so forward to it. Thank you for having me.
Well, we shall catch you soon.